Welcome, dear listener, to a gentle journey back to the 1800s, where the embers of the American Civil War have cooled and the world is stitching itself back together. Tonight, you'll drift into a cozy, reflective tale wrapped in the soft glow of a post-war era. Before we begin, if you find comfort in these bedtime stories, please subscribe to our channel so you never miss a tale to soothe your soul. Now, settle under your blanket. Let the firelight flicker in your mind. A step into a deserter's final night. Asterisk, asterisk, the twilight air wraps around you like a well-worn shawl, heavy with the scent of damp earth, pine needles, and the faint temps of wood smoke as you trudge through the Virginia woods. It's 1866, and the American Civil War has left the land bruised but breathing, its scars softened by time and the quiet resilience of nature. You're a deserter, or so the Army branded you, a young man, barely past 20, who slipped away from the Union ranks when the roar of cannons and the cries of the fallen became too much to bear. Your boots, caked with mud, sink slightly into the leaf-strewn path, each step a reminder of the miles you've put between yourself and the battlefields. The war is over, but its weight clings to you, a shadow that lingers in the hollows of your heart. The forest is dense, its trees standing like silent sentinels, their branches weaving a canopy that filters the last rays of a dying sun. You've been walking for hours, maybe days, guided by whispers of a safe place, hidden hollow, where no soldier's bugle can reach. Your knapsack, slung over one shoulder, holds little: a crust of bread, a canteen half filled with water, and a tattered letter from home you haven't dared to read since you fled. Your coat, once a proud Union blue, is now a faded gray, its buttons dulled by time and weather. Hunger gnaws at your belly, and exhaustion tugs at your limbs. But fear keeps you moving, fear of the noose, of the firing squad, of the judgment that awaits a man who ran from duty. Ahead, a faint glow pierces the dusk, warm and golden, like a beacon. You follow it, your steps quickening despite the ache in your legs, until the trees part to reveal a small clearing. There, nestled against a gentle hillside, stands a cabin, its weathered logs glowing softly in the twilight. Smoke curls from its chimney, spiraling upward like a prayer. And the scent of burning oak mingles with something sweeter, perhaps bread or stew, something that speaks of home. Your heart, so long clenched with dread, softens at the sight. You approach, your boots crunching on the frost-kissed grass, and raise a trembling hand to knock. The door creaks open, and an old woman peers out, her face etched with lines that tell of years and losses. Her hair is silver, tied back in a loose bun, and her eyes, sharp yet kind, seem to see through you, to the boy you were before the war. "Come in, lad," she says, her voice low and warm, like the crackle of a hearth. "You look like you've walked a long road." Her name, you learn, is Eliza, a widow who has lived in this hollow since before the war tore her world apart. She steps aside, and you cross the threshold, the warmth of the cabin enveloping you like an embrace inside. The cabin is a tapestry of comfort, woven from small, careful details. Quilt, patched with squares of red and blue, drapes over a rocking chair by the hearth, where a fire snaps and pops, casting dancing shadows on the walls. A wooden table, scarred but sturdy, holds a loaf of cornbread, its crust golden and cracked, and a kettle hums softly on the fire, sending up curls of steam. Shelves line one wall, laden with jars of preserved peaches, blackberries, and apples that glow like stained glass in the firelight. A faint scent of lavender lingers, perhaps from a bundle tucked somewhere out of sight. And the air feels thick with the promise of rest. Eliza gestures to a chair, and you sink into it, your body grateful for the reprieve. She hands you a tin mug, its surface warm from the chamomile tea within. and you cradled it in your hands, letting the steam rise to your face. The tea is fragrant, soothing, its floral notes mingling with a hint of honey, and as you sip, you feel the tension in your shoulders begin to unravel. Rest here tonight, Eliza says, her eyes meeting yours with a quiet understanding. Tomorrow's troubles can wait. There's no judgment in her voice, no questions about the past you're running from. She seems to know, as only those who've seen wars cost can, that some wounds are carried in silence. You sit by the fire, its warmth seeping into your bones, and listen as the cabin settles around you. The logs creak softly, as if whispering secrets to the night, and outside, an owl hoots, its call low and mournful. The war feels far away, yet it's never truly gone. You see it in flashes: the muddy trenches, the glint of bayonets, the faces of friends who didn't make it home. You deserted, not out of cowardice, but because the weight of killing, of marching toward death, broke something inside you. The army called it treason. You called it survival. But here, in this cabin, those distinctions blur, softened by the glow of the hearth and the steady presence of Eliza. She moves about the cabin with a grace born of routine, tending the fire, slicing cornbread, stirring a pot of stew that simmers with a rich aroma of onions and herbs. She says, setting a plate before you. The cornbread is warm, crumbly, with a faint sweetness that reminds you of summers long gone. And the stew, thick with potatoes and carrots, warms you from the inside out. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, and for a moment, you're not a fugitive, but a guest, welcomed into a home that feels like it could belong to anyone, whether from the rolling hills of Virginia, the misty moors of England, or the maple-lined valleys of Canada. Eliza sits across from you, her hands folded in her lap, and begins to speak. Her voice is a storyteller's, rich with the cadence of someone who's lived through seasons of joy and sorrow. She tells you of life before the war, when this hollow was a place of laughter and light. She speaks of barn dances under harvest moons, where fiddles sang and lanterns swayed, of neighbors gathering to share cider, and stories of her son's 2 boys, now gone, who used to chase fireflies in the clearing outside. Her words paint a world unscarred by cannon fire, where time moved with the rhythm of planting and harvest, not the march of armies. You listen, your eyes heavy, and feel a longing for that world, a place where peace was as natural as breathing. The fire crackles, sending up sparks that vanish into the chimney. And you notice the small details of the cabin, the way the quilt stitches are uneven, a labor of love. The way the floorboards creak under Eliza's steps, each one a note in the house's quiet song. She tells you of the land itself, how the hollow has been a refuge for generations, hiding travelers, lovers, and wanderers from the world's harsh gaze. This place has a way of holding you, she says, of giving you a chance to start again. Her words are a balm, and you feel the weight of your past, your desertion. Your fear begin to loosen, like a knot slowly untied as the night deepens. Liza banks the fire, adding a log that sends a fresh wave of warmth through the room. She brings you a pallet of blankets, soft and heavy, and spreads them near the hearth. Sleep here, she says, where it's warm. You lie down, the blankets smelling faintly of lavender and wood smoke, and gaze at the fire's glow, its light playing across the ceiling like a dance of dreams. Outside, the world is still, save for the whisper of leaves and the distant call of a whippoorwill. You wonder if tomorrow will bring soldiers to this hollow, their boots trampling the peace you found, or if you'll slip away again, a shadow among shadows. While for now, you let the fire's warmth and Eliza's stories carry you toward sleep. Your eyes drift closed, and you imagine the hollow as it was in Eliza's place of fireflies and laughter, of hands joined in dance, of a world where war was just a story told told to scare children. The scent of chamomile lingers, mingling with the sweetness of molasses from the cornbread, and you feel yourself sinking into a dream where the past is soft, forgiving, and the future is a road yet untraveled. The cabin holds you, its walls, a shield against the night, and for the first time in months, you sleep without fear, wrapped in the cozy glow of a time when peace was possible. Dawn breaks over the hollow, its light filtering through the cabin's small windows, painting the rough-hewn walls with a golden haze that feels like a promise. You stir on the pallet of blankets, the scent of wood smoke still lingering in the air, mingled with the faint sweetness of the cornbread you ate last night. The fire has burned low, its embers glowing faintly, but the cabin remains warm, a cocoon against the crisp morning air. From the corner of the room comes the soft clatter of iron against iron, and you turn to see Eliza at the stove, her movements steady and practiced as she tends a skillet where apples sizzle, their caramelized scent rising like a memory of home. It's a smell that tugs at your heart. Perhaps it reminds you of a farm in Pennsylvania where your mother once baked apple pies, or a cottage in the Yorkshire Dales where an aunt served fried apples with breakfast, or even a Canadian homestead where maple syrup and apples were a winter treat. Wherever home was for you, the scent wraps you in its warmth, and you sit up, rubbing sleep from your eyes. Eliza turns, her silver hair catching the morning light, and smiles. "Good morning, lad," she says, her voice as gentle as the dawn. She sets a plate before you, the apples golden and glistening, dusted with a whisper of cinnamon that makes your mouth water. Beside them is a wedge of cornbread, left over from last night but still soft, its edges slightly crisp. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, the sweetness of the apples blending with the earthy warmth of the bread. The act of eating feels like a ritual, a grounding moment that anchors you to this place. This time, far from the chaos of the war that still haunts your dreams. Outside, the hollow is alive with birdsong, a chorus of sparrows and finches, their notes weaving together like a hymn, as if the world itself is offering forgiveness for the scars it bears. Eliza sits across from you at the scarred wooden table, her hands folded over a worn Bible, its leather cover softened by years of touch. She doesn't open it, but her fingers trace its edges, as if drawing comfort from its presence. "You're running from something," she says, her voice soft, but certain, not accusingly, but as if she's noting the way the wind moves through the trees. You pause, the fork halfway to your mouth, and meet her gaze. Her eyes are kind, but they see too much through the layers of guilt and fear you've carried since the night you fled the army. The words stick in your throat, heavy as the mud that once clung to your boots, but her silence invites you to speak, and so you do. You tell her of the war, your voice halting at first, then spilling like a river, breaking its banks. You speak of the battlefields, where the air was thick with smoke, and the ground was slick with blood. You describe the endless marches, the weight of your rifle, the orders that came like thunder, demanding you charge into lines of men who were brothers, fathers, sons. You tell her of Antietam, where the cornfields turned red, and of the boys some younger than you who fell and never rose. You confessed the moment you broke, the night you couldn't bear another dawn of killing, when you slipped away under cover of darkness, leaving your rifle in the dirt. Desertion, they called it, a word that brands you a coward, a traitor. But to you, it was the only way to save what was left of your soul. Eliza listens, her face still, her eyes never leaving yours. She doesn't interrupt, doesn't judge, but her presence is a steady anchor, keeping you from drowning in the memories. When you finish, your voice hoarse and your hands trembling, she leans forward slightly. "For breaks a man in ways no one sees," she says, her words soft but weighted with truth. "It takes what's good and twists it, leaves you carrying ghosts you can't bury. But you're here now, alive. That's a start." Her voice is a balm, soothing the raw edges of your guilt, and you feel a knot in your chest loosen. Just a little, like a rope beginning to fray. She rises and moves to the hearth, adding a log to the fire, which flares briefly, casting a warm glow across the room. Then she returns to the table, her steps slow and deliberate, and begins to speak of her own losses. She tells you of her sons, 2 boys named Thomas and James, who marched off to fight for the Union with dreams of glory in their eyes. They were young, full of laughter and mischief, the kind of boys who'd climb the oaks in the hollow or sneak extra helpings of her blackberry preserves. They didn't come home from Gettysburg, and the letters that arrived in their place were cold, formal things, words on paper that couldn't capture the warmth of their smiles. Eliza's voice trembles only once, when she speaks of the marigolds and lavender she planted over their memory, bright patches of color against the gray of her grief. You plant what you can, she says, and you let it grow. That's how you carry on. Her words settle into you, heavy and light at once, like a stone smoothed by a river. You finish your breakfast, the apples now cool but still sweet, and feel a pull to do something, to repay the kindness of this woman who's given you shelter and understanding. You offer to help with her chores, and she nods, a faint smile tugging at her lips. There's always work to be done, she says, and leads you outside to the garden. A small patch of earth tucked against the cabin's side. The garden is a quiet marvel, its rows neat despite the wildness of the hollow. Poe, there are carrots and turnips, their green tops swaying in the breeze, and a tangle of herbs, rosemary, thyme, and sage that release their fragrance as you brush past. Eliza hands you a trowel and points to a patch of weeds, their roots stubborn in the soft earth. You kneel and begin to work, the dirt cool under your fingers. The act of pulling weeds grounding you in a way you haven't felt since before the war. The rhythm of the task dig, pull, toss becomes a meditation, a way to quiet the memories that still claw at your mind. Eliza works beside you, her hands deft and sure, and you fall into a companionable silence, broken only by the rustle of leaves and the distant call of a crow as the morning stretches on. You talk of small things, the kind of talk that builds bridges between strangers. You tell her of the taste of maple syrup in Canada, a story you heard from a comrade who grew up near the border, how it was poured over snow to make a sweet, sticky treat. She laughs softly and shares a tale of her own, of foggy moors in England, described to her by a traveler who passed through the hollow years ago, where the mist was so thick you could lose yourself in it. You speak of fireflies, how they danced in the summers of your childhood, tiny stars you could hold in your hands. Eliza nods, her eyes distant, and tells you of the fireflies in this very hollow, how they still light up the nights, a reminder that beauty persists even after war. The sun climbs higher, warming the earth, and you move from the garden to other tasks, chopping firewood, hauling water from a nearby stream, mending a loose board on the cabin's porch. Each task is simple, yet it feels like a reclamation, a way to rebuild something in yourself that the war tore down. Eliza watches you work, her presence steady, and you sense that she's giving you more than shelter. She's giving you a chance to feel useful, to feel human again. By mid-afternoon, your hands are sore, but your heart is lighter, And you sit with her on the porch, sharing a mug of cold water and a slice of bread spread with her blackberry preserves. The sweetness bursts on your tongue, and you close your eyes, letting the moment linger as dusk begins to creep over the hollow, painting the sky in shades of lavender and gold. Liza lights a lantern, its glow soft as a prayer. She hands you a letter, sealed with a dab of wax, its weight slight but significant in your hand. For you, when you're ready, she says, her voice quiet but firm. You don't open it yet, but you slip it into your pocket, where it rests like a promise. The two of you return to the cabin, where the fire has been stoked again, its warmth filling the room. You settle into the rocking chair, the quilt draped over your shoulders. You feel the day's work settle into your bones. A good kind of ache. Eliza sits across from you, her hands busy with a piece of mending, and begins to tell another story, this one of a winter long ago, when the hollow was blanketed in snow and the cabin was filled with neighbors sharing stories and songs. Her voice weaves a tapestry of memory, each word a thread that pulls you closer to sleep. The fire crackles, the lantern glows, and the cabin feels like a sanctuary, a place where the world's harshness cannot reach. You think of the letter in your pocket, of the road ahead, but for now, you let yourself rest in this moment, this fragile peace. Your eyes grow heavy, and as you drift toward sleep, you dream of fields unscarred by war, of fireflies and laughter, of a life where you might yet find a home. Morning creeps into the hollow, a soft mist clinging to the trees, wrapping the world in a gentle veil that blurs the edges of reality. You wake on the pallet by the hearth, the blankets warm, but the fire cold, its embers reduced to a faint gray ash. The cabin is quiet, too quiet, and you sit up, your heart quickening as you realize Eliza is gone. Her rocking chair sits still, its quilt folded neatly over the back, and the kettle on the stove is silent, no longer humming with the promise of tea. On the scarred wooden table lies a small bundle, a loaf of cornbread, its crust still crisp, a jar of blackberry preserves, its contents gleaming like dark jewels, and a note written in a steady hand. You pick it up, the paper soft under your fingers, and read. The world is wide, lad. Find your place in it. The letter from last night, still sealed with wax, rests in your pocket, its weight a quiet reminder of the woman who gave you shelter. In a moment of peace, you step outside, the air crisp and clean, carrying the scent of damp leaves and the faint sweetness of autumn. The hollow is bathed in a soft light, the mist weaving through the trees like a dream. And the cabin behind you feels like a memory already, its weathered logs fading into the landscape. You sling your knapsack over your shoulder, the bread and preserves tucked safely inside, and feel a pull to move on, not as a deserter, not as a fugitive, but as a man seeking a new beginning. The road ahead stretches north, a narrow path winding through the woods, and you take your first steps, the crunch of leaves under your boots, a steady rhythm that grounds you in this moment as you walk. The mist begins to lift, revealing the hollow in all its quiet beauty. The trees, their branches heavy with the last of their autumn leaves, sway gently in the breeze, and a squirrel darts across the path, its tail a flash of gray. You pause at the edge of the woods where the path opens to a wider road and reach into your pocket for the letter. Your fingers break the wax seal and you unfold the paper. Lisa's handwriting clear and deliberate. You are not your mistakes. The war is done. Live for the peace you deserve. The words settle into you, heavy and light at once, like a stone smoothed by a river, and you read them again, letting them sink deep into your heart. You tuck the letter back into your pocket, a talisman against the past, and turn your gaze to the road ahead. The path stretches toward the horizon, where the sky is a pale blue, streaked with clouds that promise a clear day. You imagine where it might lead north to the borderlands of Canada, where the air is sharp with the scent of pine and the promise of a new life. Or across the sea to England, where bustling ports and foggy moors await. Or perhaps to a quiet corner of America, where you could find a farm or a shop, a place to call your own. The war's shadow lingers, but it's fainter now, softened by the warmth of Eliza's cabin, the taste of her cornbread, the weight of her words. You walk on, the road unfolding before you, each step a small act of defiance against the guilt that once held you captive. As you move through the morning, the world comes alive around you, A stream gurgles nearby, its water clear and cold, reflecting the sky like a mirror. You kneel to fill your canteen, the chill of the water numbing your fingers. Splash some on your face, washing away the last traces of sleep. The road winds through fields now, their grasses golden and swaying, and you pass an old stone wall, its surface mossy and worn, a relic of a time before the war. You run your hand along it, feeling the texture of history under your fingertips, and wonder about the hands that built it, the lives they led, the stories they told. The thought comforts you, a reminder that the world is bigger than your past, that it holds countless beginnings for those willing to seek them. You think of Eliza, of the way she spoke of her sons, of the marigolds and lavender she planted in their memory. You imagine her back in the hollow, tending her garden, her hands deep in the earth, coaxing life from the soil. Her strength, her quiet resilience, stays with you, a beacon as you walk. You pictured yourself in a year, or 5, or 10 perhaps, in a small house with a garden of your own, where you grow herbs and flowers, where you bake bread and share it with neighbors, where you write down the stories Eliza told you, preserving them like her jars of preserves. The thought warms you, a spark of hope that grows with each step. The sun climbs higher, burning away the last of the mist, and the road opens to a wider landscape where hills roll gently toward the horizon. You pass a farmer leading a cart, his horse plodding steadily, and he nods to you, a simple gesture that feels like acceptance. You nod back, your heart lighter, and keep walking. The rhythm of your steps blending with the sounds of the world birds calling, leaves rustling, the distant low of a cow. You think of the tales you've heard of places far from here, the rugged coasts of Nova Scotia, where the sea sings against the rocks. The green valleys of England, where villages nestle under ancient oaks. The wide plains of the American Midwest, where the sky stretches forever. This place feels possible, a canvas for the life you might yet build. As noon approaches, you find a spot to rest, a grassy knoll beside the road where a lone oak stands, its branches spreading wide. You sit beneath it, leaning against its trunk, and open your knapsack to break off a piece of Eliza's cornbread. The crust crumbles in your hands, and you spread a bit of the blackberry preserves on it, the flavor sweet and tart, a reminder of the cabin's warmth. You eat slowly, savoring the moment, and watch as a hawk circles overhead, its wings catching the sunlight. The world feels vast, open, and for the first time since the war, you feel a part of it, not a desertive, not a deserter, but a man with a future. You think back to the hollow, to the cabin's glow, to Eliza's voice, weaving stories. By the fire, you see her face, lined with loss, but bright with kindness, and you know that her gift to you was more than shelter. It was a glimpse of home, it's a reminder that peace is possible, even after war. You pull the letter from your pocket again, reading her words one more time, and they feel like a blessing, a permission to let go of the past. You fold it carefully and tuck it away, then rise to your feet, the road calling you forward. The afternoon stretches before you. It's the sun warm on your shoulders, the air sweet with the scent of autumn. You walk on, the crunch of gravel under your boots, a steady beat, and imagine a life you might find: a farm where you wake to birdsong, a shop where you greet neighbors by name, a quiet room where you write stories of fireflies and harvest moons. The war's weight is still there, but it's lighter now, carried away by the wind, by the promise of new seasons. The hollow, the cabin, Eliza, they've given you something the war never could. A moment of peace, a glimpse of home. You'll carry that warmth with you, wherever the road leads, a beacon to guide you through the years ahead.